Nothing is more exciting than plunging into a video game and exploring the expansive world it has to offer. To complete both main and side quests that spread across the map, while venturing through mountains and rivers to fight anything that stands in your way. It's one of the reasons why games such as Breath of the Wild and Red Dead Redemption 2 are so popular, as it allows its player to get immersed into the setting that surrounds them, as if they're going through the journey themselves. But what makes some video games stand above others is the way the world is specifically designed. Having a fun world to explore is one thing, but to have the setting be intertwined with the game's story so that taking a deeper look at everything around you actually adds on to your understanding of the overall game. It's what makes a game's world building go from good to amazing. An example of this would be Xenoblade Chronicles 3, where each map is a perfect blend of the locations from both the first and second game. Since the story takes place in a world where the settings of 1 and 2 have been mixed together, you can find familiar places that you may have come across while playing through the previous games. Not only that, but you can clearly pick out locations that belong to either the first or second game, and see how they merge with one another, giving you information on how the two worlds directly interact and alter each other. But there's one specific location in a certain game that takes the cake in terms of world building and its ability to tell its story just with its design. And that is the Aerie from NieR Replicant and Gestalt. Because I will be explaining how the Aerie is able to illustrate the game's story and world perfectly, there will be some major spoilers, so if you haven't played NieR Replicant or Gestalt, I highly recommend saving this video for later, for after you finish either game. I also recommend playing these games in general, because my god are they amazing and deserve all the attention in the world. But with that out of the way, let's get right into what makes this miserable place so great. It's clear that the world of NieR is dark and hopeless. The people who populate these lands aren't living, but rather surviving. They have to live in constant fear of whether they'll be ripped apart by shades, or fall ill to the deadly black scrawl. But this idea isn't really screwed into your brain until you first enter the Aerie. Up until that point, the areas you spend most of your time in are the village and the northern plains. Although they aren't exactly the most nurturing places, there are signs of life all around them. When you take your first steps into the village, you begin in NieR and Yona's house. Although it's small and there isn't much to explore inside, there's still a warm glow that illuminates the area. It makes the compact area feel cozy and intimate, a fitting emotion for either the two siblings or father and daughter that live there. But when you exit the building, that's when you begin to see the color the village holds. You are immediately greeted with a vibrant field of grass and trees. While the buildings are run down and crumbling, there are vines that grow on the walls. This can simply be seen as the earth taking back its land from the people, but that in itself is still a sign of life. The village is surrounded by rocky hills that act as a protective wall around the town, giving off the idea that the village is a small sanctuary for the people, a retreat to hide from the horrors of the world, a place to catch your breath. But upon entering the town center, that's when the village really starts to open up. While walking through the main street, you can see the villagers interacting with each other and hear the distant chattering of their conversations. They all greet you kindly and treat you as their own family. Just like NieR's home, the rest of the village fits the welcoming atmosphere of this beginning area, really shaping the small hope both you and NieR hold for the future. Even the music helps bring this idea to life, as the soft guitar of Songs of the Ancients acts almost like a lullaby, and Devola's vocals, that can only be heard the closer you get to her, practically invite you to her. It is the perfect safe haven to protect you from reality. Meanwhile, the Northern Plains acts as your first steps into that said reality. But even then, it is a rather gentle step. It holds that same vast, vibrant field from the village, the lively green popping out even more with all the wildlife that feed off of it. Although there are a few shades roaming around, at least at the beginning of the game, they aren't an issue to worry about for the most part. It acts as the usual tutorial area, holding your hand until you get the hang of things. Just like Songs of the Ancients, Hills of the Radiant Wind sounds freeing and triumphant. Hearing it gives you the confidence to go out and fight for the life both you, as NieR, and Yona deserve. But this burst of energy immediately depletes upon entering the Aerie. As you enter the cave that leads to the town, the liberating music of the Northern Plains slowly fades away into silence. All the color begins to drain out as you travel deeper into the dimly lit tunnel. This alone tells you that something's wrong, and that feeling only grows when you finally get the first glimpse of the Aerie. As the camera shifts to show you an aerial view of the location, you hear a grim and chilling choir, vocals sounding similar to chanting. It's a complete contrast to the calming songs of the ancients and the uplifting hills of the radiant winds. It's almost draining, replacing that hope you once held before entering the town with dread and concern. Even the view of the Aerie is enough to raise an eyebrow. It isn't like any other place you've visited before. There are no colorful fields of grass or blue skies. Everything is completely muted, near monochrome with the exception of red flags being hung from the bridges. And here is the first clue on how the Aerie expresses its involvement with the story simply through its design. The Aerie is a village full of people who are deeply afraid of shades. They are hostile to all outsiders and anything out of the ordinary, viewing the unknown as something to fear and avoid. As you traverse deeper into the town, you hear the citizens darkly muttering about how doomed they are, or how they don't want you anywhere near them from the safety of their homes. It is an extremely unwelcoming environment, with absolutely no signs of life. In fact, the only sign of life present was the eagle flying in the opening cinematic, a bird of prey that can soar to its heart's content, as if taunting the people with its freedom before leaving the town for good. This fear of the unknown and resistance to change would eventually lead to the entirety of the Aerie to its end, which it ultimately gets decimated when it gets taken over by shades, turning them into the very thing they loathe. This demise is foreshadowed through these red banners, as they act as a sign of warning and the bloodshed that's to come in the future. The metal houses that the villagers live in are also used as foreshadowing. They are repurposed shipping containers that look extremely uncomfortable and lifeless, even at first glance. But when looking at them closely, you can see warning labels stuck to them on the side. Not only does this tell you about the people's inevitable end, but it also gives off the idea that, because of how fearful they behave, they no longer live like humans, but rather soulless items sealed in their packages. This all gets tied together when you learn what the title of the track that plays in the Aerie is: Cold Steel Coffin. These houses aren't protective sanctuaries for these people, but instead are the very things they get buried in. There's a lot of other irony in the Aerie's design that illustrates its hopeless situation, including its own name. An Aerie is a nest of a bird of prey that is built either in tall trees or cliff sides. This not only explains the appearance of the eagle upon first entering, but also the way the town is built entirely on a cliff. The citizens can't fly freely like the eagle from before, but they still hold on to the pride that would come with such a bird of prey. They are unwilling to help anyone outside of the village, only prioritizing the safety of themselves at the cost of others. They even go as far to threatening and physically harm others they deem as abnormalities, which can be seen with their harsh treatment of Kainè, despite being their savior in Act 1 during another shade attack. Additionally, like the birds of prey, the reason why the people built their houses upon the cliffs over a deep ravine is to protect themselves from other predators, the shades. However, as previously stated and shown through the wooden eagle sculptures on the windmills, no matter how much the villagers try to act and live like birds, they will never be the same. In reality, the very idea of building a town in a giant canyon is something that any sane person would think is idiotic, especially for people who value their survival so much. But this shows just how desperate they are, that their irrational fear has driven them to make the most extreme decisions, just to get away from the things they dread. You don't need to see or talk to any of them directly. You can already make assumptions just based on their living situation. But there is one section of the Aerie that sparks a glimmer of hope back into you. Previously, I had said that the only sign of life was the eagle flying away at the opening cutscene, but that's not completely right. In reality, its other sign of life is Kainè's house. It's the first thing you see while entering the Aerie, getting just a glimpse of it while passing through a dark tunnel to reach the town. Unlike the rest of the Aerie, Kainè's spot shares the same vivid grass as the village in the northern plains, already making it feel more full of life. She isn't barricaded inside her home like everyone, but instead, her house is completely busted open to portray her freedom. This area also shares the music from the northern plains, which both erases the anxiety from Cold Steel Coffin and adds a layer of dissociation from the overall town. Although Kainè has been exiled from the Aerie, the separation symbolizes the idea that she's the only living aspect left of the town, both figuratively and literally. NieR Replicant and Gestalt are games that are specifically designed to mentally drain the players, whether that be through its story, side quests, characters, you name it. It makes you question your every step and think about what will happen after every action you take. But the effects that these games have on its players wouldn't be nearly as effective if its world wasn't so beautifully crafted. It takes a statement of show don't tell to the full extent. Even if you aren't one to take a closer look at your surroundings, the atmosphere of these locations can get you into the correct mood just on its own. The Aerie is awful, pitiful, and exhausting. You don't want to spend a single second there if you can help it. And that's what makes it the quintessential example of world building.